Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, I hope you're having a fantastic day and an even better week. On this video, folks, we're going to talk a little bit about what happens. Well, I should say, what happens, what you get, what you're looking for, right? Or what you hope for, what you want, right? I'm going to talk about a little bit of that. And as we do, just to preface, oftentimes we jump into organizational culture, right? Because that's where we typically congregate as people and as teams and interact the most. That isn't to say that's all, right? And then we'll talk about other facets of culture, and, other groups we can be involved with, as well as our own personal lives, right? Everything is connected and everything ripples inward and outward and back again, right? Not unlike a pond. So, what happens when you get what you want? So I can preface this from an organizational perspective, and let's start small, and we'll work out from there. What happens when, and we use the leadership team at any site, and you are part of the broader team, okay? What happens when your site leadership, individually or as a support staff element, let's say that you really want them to be more attentive and engaging with your team, maybe develop you, all the things, all the good stuff, right? Imagine now that you come in after Christmas time, and the next time the leadership staff and the leaders at the site are present, all of a sudden they've engaged. They're engaging. They are taking, they're highly accountable. They're engaging. They're developing. They're interested. They're kind of jazzed up and interested in you even, right? And they're connecting the dots and they're excited about everything. What happens if that's something that you want, right? Because you know that, hey, if this occurs, this will be the beginning of a good shift in organizational culture, which is true, right? But it'll be the shift in organizational culture, and this may be in your mind's eye. Hey, if these things would just be present, where the organizations that I'm involved with, be they work or other, even groups you're involved with. Heck, this could be family or your friend groups, whatever. But if this is present, then wow, that would just be fantastic. I would just love that. And now imagine you receive that. You get that. This change, this shift has occurred now, right? And now the development, the engagement, everybody's, enthusiastic about things and all of that. See that occurring, right? See that occurring. Now also then see what's your response to that? What is your, how do you reciprocate? Because we can all say, well, gee, it'd be great if if this existed and that existed. Everything would be just perfect if that existed, right? Or if this was, then I could just be happy, or I would just be satisfied with where I'm working, or the group that I'm engaged with organizationally or whatever. If that existed, then that would just make my day, right? If they were just appreciative, if they were just this, they were just that, right? Because you can play this exercise out in your mind's eye and go, all right, this happens. Now, how do you feel now, right? How does that feel? And think about it and marinate on that thought for a few seconds or a minute or two, whatever whatever you feel. What changes for you, right? What changes in your life? What changes, in how things operate, say where you work or the groups you're engaged with, and then how does that trickle out into your life, right? It's kind of like, well, if I just had a full tank of gas, then I could get somewhere. Okay, Now imagine you have a full tank of gas, right? That's kind of what I'm saying, right? If I'm boiling it down to its simplest analogy. And this is also in reverse too, right? We could be talking about the broader team. Well, if these folks would just respond to all the good stuff I'm trying to do for them, then they would see that everything, we could all grow and thrive, and all boats are lifted if they would just, participate and just some enthusiasm and appreciation for what they have going on, and build upon that momentum, right? Same thing. Come back to that same analogy. You need we'll use the gas vehicle for now. You have enough, or a charge, whatever, but you have now a full tank of gas. Now, your original premise is, if I just had the this, or if I just had the that, right? We're shaped by this hedonic treadmill too, by the way. Well, if I just had this, then all my worries would be gone. If I just had that, all my worries would be gone. Most of us understand that this is never the case, but we have to be careful too. We can't just put our fire out, right? The exercise of visualizing this isn't to throw water on your dreams and your hopes, right? That's not the point. The point, though, is to say, all right, now I have a full tank of gas, or maybe I have, a month or 2, 3 months of free gas. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do with that? How are you going to take that resource, or take that benefit, and now apply it to your life, right? How is this going to enrich your life in some way, shape, or form? Now, in the moment, you might think, oh, wow, this is great. And there is a kind of a glee and a joy and appreciation and all that. Great, that's fantastic. But we have to also then look at these things from a pragmatic perspective, whether it was whatever it is, right? This could be a material item, a materialistic item as well. Well, if I just had all this money, I could go, it would just make all my problems go away. Well, unless you have some reason to have all that, right? What's your purpose, right? Ultimately, if we don't have a purpose, it doesn't matter all the things we could ever want and have, and all those things mean nothing, really, folks. You are the gift, right? Your presence, you are the present. Your presence is the present. You are the gift. And when you see yourself as the gift, and I don't mean from an egotistical way, I'm talking about, that you have gifts and talents to offer, right? In every waking moment, right? When you see it that way, there isn't really anything anyone could really give you that, if there's anything, I should rephrase this, if anything could be given to you that would make you think, oh, well, that would be the best, and it would just make all my problems go away, whatever, then that's how you know that you're still growing, right? There's still more of you to realize about yourself, really. Doesn't matter if we're talking about individual, a team, an organization, any civic group. It doesn't matter. Pick any scale, right? From individual all the way up to group sizes, right? The group has to grow. You have to, there's truth to the saying that you will start to receive the things that you become. If you're a giver, right, and you have to be careful because you can overgive too, right? You can't be blind, and you can't be indiscriminate, right? You have to, have a measured thought process, because otherwise you basically set yourself back in time, right? Set yourself back in your own progress and ability. It's that whole thing. It's like, put your mask on first, like, God forbid you've ever had the oxygen mask fall, but they tell you, put your mask on first, then put it on your family, right? If you're flying, if cabin pressure. That rings true. You can't help anyone if you are, incapable. It doesn't mean that you say, well, I have to be completely capable and have to have all these boxes checked, and I have to have this and have to have that before I can do that. That isn't the case. But it is to say that you do have to at least modulate and pull the weeds in your own garden and seed and do all the good things to grow your capabilities, right? Develop yourself, all of those things. If you were waiting for somebody in your organization to develop you or to give you the opportunity to look, folks, you can take classes online. You can go classes in the community. You don't take a class. You can learn just about anything online now with YouTube and all the rest of it, right? I mean, you essentially can learn anything you want. You don't even need to essentially go get a degree. That being said, what do you value from it? Going through structured training and all that sort of thing, there's value there. So I'm not poo-pooing that at all. But I am saying that if you want to learn something pragmatically, just go learn it. If nothing else, it'll stoke the flames to make you want to dig deeper into it, right? But I come back to this. Now you have that tank full of gas. Where are you going to go? Once you get the thing or you achieve the goal, right? Now this can be those objectives too, right? This could be your personal objectives, your teams, your organizations. Once you achieve these objectives, then what? If you're an owner of a large business or even bigger, and you're like, well, if I hit these objectives and these, targets, if you will, targets, objectives, and then larger goals, say site level and so on up the chain, you start to hit those, then what? Well, then we can expand. Whoa, wait. You can expand, but what's your purpose? Well, our purpose is to serve the customer better. Well, is expansion before strengthening my team, right? Because if your team, burned every ounce of tank in their gas to get you across the finish line, you're going to have to take care of your team. You're going to have to develop your team. You're going to have to address, engagement. You're going to have to build your team's ability to maintain that organizational culture, right? And lift all boats, right? If you don't have a formulaic approach to it, you're probably going backwards, quite honestly. And your turnover is so high, and you're in your industry, you're either suffering within your industry, you're considerably distance, miles away from best in class, or even to be able to even get near best in class. That because potentially you're starving out your team, you're starving out everything, and you're basically recycling old people out, new people in, the whole thing. So your culture is being eroded by the fact that you're just, you're exploiting people. Let's just call it what it is, right? So now the complaint might be, well, if I just had employees that would stick around, Well, sometimes you have to invest in people. Sometimes you got to get out there and, work with them and talk to them and find out what makes them tick, what lights their fire. You have to understand, folks, that I think, when I did a little bit of research into this and found out that I believe in the lifetime of anybody, that job changes happen in a lifetime. The span is between 8 and 20 jobs in a lifetime. Now that's just kind of a normative number, right? Lowest to highest. There are very few people out there that have been around for a considerable amount of time that have had less than 8 jobs in their entire life, right? You're probably just starting out if that's the case. But we have to ask ourselves why, right? And we can look back. You can look back. Look, folks. You can just look at the census. Go back and look at all the census data, and you will see how ineffective and inefficient just culture in the U.S. from an organizational perspective has been over time. Now, while we have become more efficient in ways, it's been a trade-off. We've bought into more technology, which is fantastic. We've done a lot of things on the good side, but we haven't done the meaningful human things, right? We haven't developed ourselves as, I wouldn't say experts, because we can't all become experts, but to become more effective dealing with each other, quite honestly. And in organizations, we have to have that engagement. We have to be able to build cohesive teams. We have to essentially have the closest thing to a family that isn't, say, your family, away from your home, say. And if you're thinking, well, gee, Steve, it's work, this isn't family, Well, maybe your approach and your tact is incorrect, right? You may have gone down this pragmatic approach. You've been stoic and disassociated and all these things. And what does it cost you, right? And this is just owners and site leaders. This is also team members. If you've been a holdout and said, well, they don't listen to me anyway, so I'm not going to contribute. Well, you know what? You're basically both just wearing the left and right shoe in the argument, right? You're not really getting anywhere with the old paradigm, and you need to shift it. You need to shift your paradigm. So what does that mean? Well, I guess it was Einstein that said, I believe, that said, if you keep doing this, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I got news for you, folks. It's been decades, many decades in the US of doing the same thing over again. And then buying into programs, programs that essentially are piecemeal, right? It's like saying, well, I'm going to invest in nails to build this house. Okay, well, how about wood? Well, can't afford wood. Maybe we'll get wood next year. Okay. And then the next year, we're going to get wood. Okay, great. We need to get this. Well, I can't afford that. See where this goes? You're just piecemealing it. You're piecemealing it. Rather, in some respects, you weren't really prepared to build a house. You really weren't prepared, in some instances, to run a business, right? In the sense that you were capable to start a business and to put out product, but you really weren't fully capable, right? And maybe you were, but maybe you didn't outfit your team, right? You didn't recruit the way you should have. And then if you didn't recruit the way you should have and you decided to develop a team within, you started to do some development and then stopped, right? So you started to build the house, right? Then you took all the hammers away, or nail guns, whatever we're talking about, right? See what I mean? You're just, what is the old saying? You're starving it out. You're starving the machine, right? You're starving your machine, and you're doing it yourself. There's nobody doing this to you. But what we do see is we see this all passed off to the consumer by inflating prices 25-30%, right? And then this trickles into this trickle of it's a supply chain issue and all. No, it's not. It's an effectiveness issue. It's really never been a supply chain, because if you go back in your supply chain, go into that organization, it's an effectiveness issue. And then if they're complaining about suppliers, it's their suppliers' effectiveness. It isn't, supply chain, that's like saying, I'm sick. Well, you have a human body issue. No, there's a virus or whatever, right? An infection of some sort, right? It's not a body issue. It's not a supply chain issue, right? It's a human being issue. And the effectiveness thing speaks to what? All the right things that we could do. That being said, let's imagine we achieve certain things. Well, this year we were able to do this, this, and this. Now, what do you need to do? Now we need to sustain it. Well, what do we need? What did we do right? This is what we did right. Okay, where are we still weak? This is where we're weak. Let's build on that, right? It's really no different than building a sports team, right? Building an organization, in sports, and you're competing out there, right? But more, even though there is a competition out there, you're really trying to be as effective as you can be to get wins for your customers. That is your goal. That is your goal. Now imagine hitting that goal and being able to give your customers best product on time at the best cost. I mean, to such a level, the best cost that you are overwhelmed with business. Because why? You're effective, right? You're squeezing out the supply chain excuse. Why is it? Because it's an effectiveness issue, not a supply chain issue. And then you work this back through your supply chain, right? And this is why we do supplier visits and all those things, right? And we have scorecards and all those things. We do these things, right, for the customer. This isn't for your own pride and ego. This isn't to say, well, we're fantastic. We have the seal of XYZ. Well, great. You have the seal of XYZ. There's, celebrate, do your luncheon, celebrate. You got the seal of XYZ. Sustain that for your customers. Because if you start slipping back because you have the seal of XYZ, now you're not even living up to the standard that you say you do, right? This is the problem with ISO, is so many people that do pass it, they slip back because ISO isn't going to make you do the job correctly. It isn't going to make your quality good, right? It isn't going to make you ship on time. It isn't going to make you, it'll call out, it'll show you, it'll be revealing. But if you don't do anything to fix it, that's where you're dropping the ball, right? So time comes around. Well, what did you do? What was your after action, right? What was your corrective action in situations? So we have to ask ourselves, imagine getting that thing, right? Imagine achieving that objective, achieving that target. Now that I've achieved it, are you happy now? Just think of it from a personal, a personal one-on-one perspective. Are you happy as a team member in this organization now that you've achieved this goal? It may be a team goal that was achieved, but you don't feel connected to it. So imagine you hit that target. If you as an organizational leader haven't linked your team achieving a goal to an individual's, if you haven't connected the dots to show that, well, if we do this, this is how it affects you individually. If they don't understand, if your team members do not understand how it's going to improve their lives and build thriving lives, right? If you're in the old paradigm, and I say old paradigm because if you're doing this, you're living in the past. But if you're still in that, well, it's work and I pay them and they come in and do work, right? Do you feel the same way about your family? Do you feel the same way about your friends, right? Is everything transactional, right? Is everything transactional? Well, I'll be kind once I'll be kind once you do this. Is everything kind of a trade-off? Is everything a if-then scenario? No, you need to bring your best, right? You wouldn't tell anybody on your team and within your organization, well, once we do our part, then I know you'll step up and do your part as, broader team. No, you do your part irrespective of that, right? Excellence is its own reward. Starts at the top, folks, right? That being said, team members who are flying beneath the radar, staying out of sight, out of mind, they also have to step up. But if they don't know, if they aren't, their head and their heart are not connected to the dots that are leading your organization forward to be successful, if there isn't a present, an obvious pathway that they can see and go, oh yeah, that's fantastic, and then ask themselves, okay, once we do this and we achieve this, how is that going to help you? And if they're like, well, it doesn't really matter, well, that's something individually we all have to find opportunity and time and take a knee and slow things down. How is this? Well, you're creating more longevity in your organization, so you don't have to go, to the next job. You don't have to get laid off, right? The easiest way not to get laid off and let go and all these things when it's a math thing, not a performance thing. Performance is just perform, but on the other arenas, dive in and make your organization fantastic, right? Become the best and get your team members to work with you. That being said, site leaders and ownership, they also need to be going on full 8 cylinders as well, right? This isn't an either or. This isn't a chicken or an egg conversation. It's always going to be both. Always going to be both. It isn't my parents, I'm going to be a good kid when my parents XYZ, or I'm going to be a loving, kind parent when my kids start cleaning their room. No. There is no either or. It is chicken and egg together, right? So, until the conversation is such that it's both the chicken and the egg, it is both the leaders and the teams, it is both the ownership and the teams, it is both, because until it's that, it won't be about the customer. It won't, because you are too worried about what somebody else is doing instead of focusing on the customer. When you're focused on the customer, you give your best. If you're a leader, you focus on the customer, you give your best. It doesn't matter, right? It shouldn't even be a thing, right? It shouldn't even be a wall there or any kind of interference. And in some organizations, very few, it really isn't. They're just trying to fine tune. They're trying to find their sweet spot and they want to build and get better. That's why you reach out and talk to me. If you want to get better and build some of these skills and help to sustain these things, my program, significantly more effective and efficient than what you're going to find out there. That's why I built it. Because why? You don't have the time, money, and all these things, but you do want to sustain and build cohesive teams. So reach out if you're looking to do that. On that note, folks, imagine getting what you want. And then how does that make you feel? And if it doesn't light you up, then you need to bring yourself. You become the gift in the situation, right? And just because you want that thing and it doesn't necessarily make you feel good imagining getting that, right? It doesn't mean that that's not a worthy thing to have, whatever that is, goal, target, objective, major milestone in your life, a degree, whatever it is, right? Material item, whatever, you want the new car, whatever it is, it's not going to make you happy. You have to learn to be happy with you first, because everything else will be a distraction until you do. So work on those things. Work on finding a contentment within yourself. Then you're going to bring to your team, a person who you can't be bought. It doesn't matter. You can't be bought because your happiness comes from a place that doesn't exist, right? It comes from an internal drive, an internal spark that nobody sells on the street. You can't buy it in a store, and nobody can ever give it to you as a gift. You are the gift. Your presence is the present. So on that note, hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember, hit that good green domino 3 to 5 times a day to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage one another. When we do this, not only are we helping to transform culture, but we're transforming ourselves. And remember, we can't transform anything on the outside if we're not willing to transform on the inside. Super important. All right, folks, hope you have a fantastic day. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.